Hello, everyone. Welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. I think we will get started now. We're just a few minutes behind schedule. But my name is Riza Hanselman, and I'm from the Foundation for Environmental Education. And this is our first of two workshops related to bioeconomy education. So, just a little bit of housekeeping. I know all of us have done many webinars in the last few years at this point, but please be mindful of your microphone. Make sure it's muted to avoid interruptions. And we're also recording this session. So if you're not comfortable with being recorded, feel free to turn your camera off. So just a little rundown of what we're going to be doing together for the next hour. I'm going to introduce you to the LEAF program and the BioBeo project. And then we have two really great speakers with us here today. We have Rein Dessers from Earth, Plant and Fiber and Tom Curran from the University College Dublin, who will be talking about bioeconomy and bioeconomy education. And we're also going to have some questions and answers and a little bit of Mentimeter interaction. So this is just a heads up that we are going to be using Mentimeter today, and my colleague Raquel will pop the link into the chat. So you can access that with your phone or on your web browser. So I still see some people like coming in as we go, so we'll pick it up. We're going to start now with Mentimeter and ask you, where in the world are you joining from today? And you can access that through the link in the chat and then just plop a pin onto this little map. All right, we've had 3 people participating. There are 77 people in this workshop, so hopefully we get a bit more than the 11. There's also a chat, so feel free to introduce yourself in the chat. We have a nice range here actually today. That's super to see. Oh, it looks like someone is joining from Antarctica. It's a pleasure. Thank you so much for being here. All right, we'll give it another minute. So, okay. And then the next question, so that we all kind of know a little bit about each other here in this workshop. We'd love to know who you are, whether you are an early years educator, primary years educator, or secondary years educator. Maybe you're all of these, or if you're coming from a public sector or NGO organization or the private sector. All right. Interesting range. We have 18 people who have participated in this little poll. Maybe we can get it to 20. Great. Okay, really nice range. Super to see. A big welcome to you all. So this was just a little taste of how this is going to go. We will be using Mentimeter throughout, so keep that open. But with that, I think we can kind of dive into it now. As I mentioned at the start, my name is Riza, and I work for the Foundation for Environmental Education, which is an international NGO with headquarters here in Copenhagen, Denmark. And we run 5 programs. But today I'll be talking about the Learning About Ecosystems and Forest program, which is LEAF. It's our outdoor education program, the main goal of which is to encourage and foster a connection for young people with the nature and the natural environment through outdoor education. And so we provide teacher training and educational materials. We are currently running in about 24 countries worldwide, from little early years up to secondary school. And this is connected to the BioBeo project, which is the reason we're all here today, which is a project that we've been involved in for the last 2.5 years. It's an EU project with 15 partners, the aim of which was to develop and deploy educational tools and initiatives across different areas of society related to the bioeconomy and sustainability and circularity. And in the project, 5 kind of key themes were identified. So we have the food loop, life below water, forestry, outdoor learning, and interconnectedness. The last 2 of which are very, very closely tied to our LEAF program. So over the last 2 years, we at LEAF have been working on the interconnectedness and outdoor learning aspect of the BioBeo project. And you will hear more about that from one of our speakers. So, since we're all here today, another quick check-in to hear from you. What does bioeconomy mean to you? If you have no idea, that's perfect, actually. We would love to know. If you have some ideas, put them down. There's not really any wrong answers. We'll be discussing it today and hearing from some experts, I would say, about what bioeconomy is. And it can mean a lot of things. So, no idea. Love it. Thank you for your honesty. Here to learn about it. Perfect. Using goods without waste, another no idea. Sustainable use of natural resources. The bioeconomy refers to an economic system that harnesses biological resources, science, and technology to produce sustainable goods, energy, and services. We might have another expert here, I guess. All right, circular economy, biotechnology, renewable resources, economical use of resources. All right. So some of us have no idea, which I was right there with you at the beginning. Some of us have maybe heard of it before. So what we're going to do is kind of work on defining what the bioeconomy is, and then think about how this relates to education. So with that, I'm going to introduce our 2 speakers. We have Rein Dessers from Earth, Plant and Fiber and Tom Curran from the University College of Dublin. Rein, I'm going to say, is a bioeconomy expert, I would say. And Tom is also a bioeconomy expert and works on the BioBeo project. With that, Rein, I'm going to say the floor is yours and you can take it away.
Thank you so much, Risa. Do you all hear me loud and clearly?
Yes.
Hello. Thank you for inviting me here to set everything clear. I'm not a professor. I would say I am rather a practitioner of bioeconomy. Because well, I'm a bioengineer that's my educational background, and I started the Nature-Based Chain Coalition, like you see on the subtitle, and Nature-Based Ketencoalitie is the Dutch word for a chain, value chain, a coalition of pioneering bio-based entrepreneurs and researchers. So we bring them all together from the different steps in the chain. So we have feedstock producers, and then I mean organic feedstocks or natural products as feedstock from agriculture, from forestry, and so on. Also waste streams from industry. Material producers, machine constructors, designers, researchers, building companies, and all kind of clients. We bring them together in one chain coalition. But maybe I should take a step back, because the main question where you expected an answer from me was what is bioeconomy? And I think I didn't understand clearly what the audience would be, because now I think I have to start from a very basic level, and my slides might not be that much adequate. But let's see. You can go to the next slide, thanks. So I won't give you a formal definition of bioeconomy, because I didn't study definitions, but I would say it's an economy based on natural feedstock, so not on petrol-based feedstock, or not on metals or other minerals. So on natural feedstock, but also often using natural techniques, natural processing techniques. So like bacteria, yeasts, fermentation, all kind of stuff. Some people say food production and is also within bioeconomy. We rather tend to say that food production, okay, it is part of it, but I won't focus my presentation on food production, of course. Here you see that the bioeconomy is not that new, as you might think, because already in 1941, Ford came with a bioplastic Model T, which was made of hemp, flax, wheat, and spruce pulp. But unfortunately, it never reached the market. It wasn't a big success at that time. But this is an example of bioeconomy. You use natural feedstock. I could have given a lot of more examples, just pictures of what is bioeconomy. But you can also think of natural water purification, fermentation as a washing technique, not only to produce bioenergy, but bioenergy, of course, is also part of bioeconomy. What else? Using natural organisms as glues or binders within materials, like mycelium strings, for example. Mycelium, that is the root structure of a mushroom, which can bind other things together. So that there it has the function of a binder. Okay, next slide, because I only have 10 minutes, right? Okay. And again, so bioeconomy is not new. If you look at this diagram, you see that or more or less 50% of our global carbon demand for chemicals and materials is already bio-based. So textiles, pulp and paper industry, wood construction and furniture are the main parts, and the rest of the 50% is fossil-based. Next slide, please. That is already right now. But the potential is still high. We have a huge growth potential in bio-based, and that is also what we expect in the next decades, that it will grow. Yeah, you can go to the next slide already. And this diagram, I think you've seen it before. It's the famous butterfly diagram of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, where you see the biological loop on the left hand, and on the right hand, the technical loop. And actually, and there you see in the biological loop that you start from feedstock from the ground, and mostly coming from land, organic feedstock, and then it goes into products, and it goes back then to land. And in the meantime, because plants grow, it's a photosynthesis that they do. Plants convert the CO2, which is in the air, in carbon, which is stuck in the leaves and in the stem. So it's a carbon capture machine. And now that we have so much problems with the CO2 emissions, so they do the reverse. And so they capture this carbon, they stock it, and if we then take these, if we make materials in this biological loop, and we let them recycle, and we recycle them in the technological loop, so the blue loop, we can capture this carbon, which is still in these plants, for much longer time. So all these materials can function as a carbon sink for decades. So that is, for me, the extra value of bioeconomy. You don't only generate these emissions, CO2 emissions, at the time that you produce it, but you can, you do the reverse thing. You capture the CO2 and you keep it in the loop for a much longer period. So you can look at your built environment in the future as your carbon sink. Okay, next slide. So that is on a regional level a bit how we see how this bioeconomy can have a lot of benefits for the region. So you have a regional development, economical development, that's what I mean, based on local, more local players. Because you can use the feedstock that you don't use at this moment. There are still a lot of waste streams which are still burned or transported to foreign countries. You can create more geopolitical autonomy, and that is more a case, I think, for Europe also, because Europe doesn't have that much of fossil feedstock. We have to import these feedstocks, so it's better to take advantage and make at least use of the feedstock, the organic feedstock that we have. And of course, we have to do it in a very balanced way. We cannot, it still has to be part of a regenerative system. It's more, even in a bio-based economy, much more important that we take good care of our soils, because that is the basis of everything. And we should, the processes where we make those bio-based products should of course also be healthy, and the products healthy for humans and for other species on Earth. Okay, so we have local feedstock. We can have this pre-treatment and biorefineries on a quite local scale, and there you see some bio-based products, but which can be more biochemical products, but also very material, I mean, more mechanic processes. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, and that is maybe the slide which I should have shown in the first place, but yeah, I did it maybe a bit too quick assembling this presentation. But anyway, that is a picture of our group of bioneers. So like I said, Earth, Plant and Fiber is a coalition of pioneering bio-based entrepreneurs and researchers. and they all work together to develop new materials, new methodologies, and in the first place, actually to show that it is possible also on a quite regional scale. Because now in Flanders, at least, because most of these people are from the same region, they're all Flemish. Some they're Dutch, and yeah, some live in other countries, but still their background is from Flanders. We want to show that it is possible to run an economically feasible business on regional feedstock and on natural processes. But we have to stick together and collaborate, because this, nowadays in Flanders, bioeconomy, the huge installations are mostly based on imported feedstock, and they need this very big scale. And we try to show that it can also be economically feasible on a bit smaller scale, more on a regional scale, and where it will have much more economic value for all of them. Okay, and so we connect not only people in one segment of the value chain. We connect foresters, farmers, nature managers, with researchers and teachers, business developers, designers, material producers, also building companies. Nowadays, we see the most of the demand of materials comes from the building sector, because there they have to comply with the CSRD, and those companies are mostly the biggest, and they have to comply already, and then they have to offset their the CO2 emissions, which are above, so they have to offset their CO2 emissions, or they have to buy carbon credits to offset them, or they can make use of more bio-based materials, and so drop their overall CO2 impact, or climate impact rather. We also take on board storytellers, and I might have just asked the question to one of our storytellers to give this presentation. Yeah, I think I mentioned them all. Okay, next slide. I think I'm almost at the end. Yeah, this is some of the examples of bioneers, but most companies are not internationally known, so I don't think you will recognize a lot of them. And next, please. Yeah, this is just some pictures of some examples of our bioneers. This is Biofibix. It's a very thin and very strong material based on flax, and it wants to replace glass fiber. So it will be flax fiber mats, which are even stronger than glass fiber. Yeah, next slide. This is another company, so it's not a material producer, but it is somebody who gives workshop to navigate people through the voluntary carbon market, because this is a new legislation about registering the carbon that you store in your products, and this carbon storage has a value, has also an economical value, and that makes the products sometimes economically it makes the companies economically feasible by selling these credits. And this is the last example, a very technical one. It's a machine constructor making biochar out of woody biomass. But all these people, they come from other different sectors, of course, because biochar is also in the past, nobody was producing biochar, and now you have already quite a lot of biochar producers all over the world. But people see how it is important to capture the carbon that is included in this woody biomass, instead of burning it, where the CO2 would go to the air. While making biochar, you capture it in the product, which can still be used as a soil improver, and at the same time you also produce energy, and you have also an oil output. I think that is it. I think I stayed within my 10 minutes, right?
Yes, you did. Thank you so much. I have to say, I think it's very technical, but I think it's helpful to see that like this is what the bioeconomy actually looks like in day-to-day practice. And the purpose, I think, of this workshop is to try to bridge the gap between what the technical bioengineers, biopioneers are doing out there with what's happening in the classroom. So I think you've given us a really nice like target what we can work towards. So thank you very much. For everyone here, after we've heard from Rein, pop into to Mentimeter and let us know how you're feeling after this presentation. Maybe you're confused, maybe you're bored. That's okay. Maybe it's not for you. Excited, curious. Just let us know. Just a quick check-in to see how it's going. Okay, I'm very happy to see that the majority are curious. We have a few confused and excited people. That's totally fine. We'll keep this discussion going and see how it goes. All right, lots of people on the Menti. We will have time for some questions after the next presentation. So if you do have questions, keep them in mind, and you can also put them into the chat. Okay, super. A big majority says they are curious. This is the sweet spot. We're happy to have you here. With that, I think I will pass it on to Tom, who will talk about the BioBeo project.
Hello, everyone. I hope everybody can hear me. So my name is Tom Curran. I'm an associate professor in the School of Biosystems and Food Engineering in University College Dublin, UCD, we call it for short. And I'm going to talk about bioeconomy education, and in particular, our project called BioBeo. So it's a Horizon Europe project. It's funded by the European Commission, and bio, the first three letters is related to bioeconomy, and the last three letters, BEO, bio, is actually an Irish word for alive. So it's like the living economy. We've had a lot of different pronunciations of it among our partners, and even last week when we were having our workshop, we had some good pronunciations of a wide variety. So I also have a role here in UCD for promoting internationalization. So that's also a role you'll see there. I just wanted to highlight as well on this first slide. We've developed 3 comics as part of this project, and the main characters are up on the top right hand side. So I'm trying to fit in images from the comics throughout this presentation. So Bio is the girl there, and she's a teenager, and she has a big fluffy dog, a loyal dog called Raja. So down at the bottom, you can see that we have 15 partners, and I can talk to you about them at the end. But obviously, FEE is one of them. So that's why I'm delighted to be involved in this presentation. And I really enjoyed Rein's presentation on bioeconomy. I could have listened to it for an hour, but let's move on to the next slide, please. So the question is, why should we think about the bioeconomy in education? So again, I fitted in a little image from one of our first comics there, and you can see Bio, the girl, she's in a scene there, scuba diving, and she's looking at seaweed. Also in the background there is the water environment and the marine. You have a plastic bottle kind of linking us to the plastic pollution problem, single-use plastics, microplastics, etc. And we fish there as well. So that's kind of capturing one angle of the bioeconomy. So we have a lot of policies internationally and across all governments, including in the European Union as well, in relation to sustainable development and education for sustainable development. We hear a lot about the Sustainable Development Goals. We have climate action in mainstream news every single day now. We also hear about biodiversity loss. And these are all kind of, I suppose, negative things and things that we can be very worried about. And I think especially when we're dealing with young people, students in the classroom, they're very concerned about all of these things. And so the future is very uncertain. And I think, you know, the bioeconomy can actually give us a message of hope in terms of how to deal with climate, biodiversity. It can provide green jobs, can help with quality of life as well. And I suppose from a strategy point of view as well, the European Union have an existing bioeconomy strategy. They had the first one in 2012, another one in 2018, and this year they're bringing out a new strategy. And as part of that, education will feature very strongly in it. And I was lucky enough to be invited to an bioeconomy education workshop last November in Brussels to feed into that from our project. So we're hoping to influence policy in that area. So if we move on to the next slide, please. So just again to highlight, you know, the launch of the project happened in 2022 in Dublin, and you know, to highlight that we had the European Commissioner from Ireland, Rein Dessers, at the time launching the project. So again, it shows how European Commission is strongly supporting a bioeconomy education, and they see the value of it. If, you know, if we want to bring this concept out more widely to the public. So go on to the next slide, please. So that's just a kind of summary of it really, and the project has been running since November 2022, and it ends at the end of April this year. And it's all about developing and deploying an education program which helps us to understand and engage more in terms of circularity and the bioeconomy, or use of biological resources, and to use them in a more sustainable way. So we're trying to gather together a network of supporters, educators, and stakeholders across the spectrum, primarily teachers from preschool, primary school, and secondary school as well. But also we've developed a module at the university level as well for educators, for future teachers as well. So we're hoping to have a legacy from this project. We've also been looking at innovative governance to see how we can implement curriculum change as well. So if we move on to the next slide, please. So Reese already mentioned about the themes in this one, and this is a scene from our first comic here as well, where we're highlighting these on the whiteboard here in a classroom, and the main character is kind of understanding where it's coming from. And just as an internal joke, the illustrator put myself there as character in the image. So if we move on to the next slide, please. So there's a lot happening on this slide, but I was trying to give an overview of all the materials that we've produced so far, and what's coming in the pipeline as well. So If we start here, maybe on the left-hand side, we've got a newsletter. Feel free to sign up to that. It's on our, actually on the top right-hand side, if you can see, there's a QR code. If you go onto that, you will see on our project outcomes page of our BioBeo EU website, you will see all of these materials gathered in one place, and you can download any of them or look at them a little bit further. So the newsletter is a very short newsletter. It's free, a free monthly newsletter. It's very accessible languages. Usually it's 3 or 4 pages long. It's I'd say we're trying to give a voice to everybody. So it's primarily aimed at youth, people in education, students and teachers as well. So from primary school upwards, most people will understand the language that we're using, we hope. As I said, we've launched 3 comics. The most recent one was launched last week at our workshop. It's called Answering the Curlew's Call on the bottom left-hand side. And that's how we're showing as a symbol here, the bird, the curlew. It's an endangered species in Ireland. It has had a reduction of over 96% in the last 30 years for many reasons, for the way we farm now. Predators is an issue as well. But I'm not going into the details of that. Feel free to download them. They're all free on our website and on the UC Research Repository. We've also developed XR tools, virtual reality, augmented reality tools. You can have a look at them as well. We have developed an app which teachers should be able to use to develop guided tours in the local area to show examples of the bioeconomy. We have animated videos. An example on the bottom right-hand side there is a screenshot from one where we have a bioeconomy sing-along song. So we've actually 2 songs at this stage, and you can see them on our YouTube channel. We've also free lesson plans in a teaching package, and what's there at the moment is an example of a slide there on the right-hand side of the screen there, sustainable circular bioeconomy planet-friendly consumption. That's just an example of a PowerPoint deck of slides which teachers could use, but we'll be adding more to them over the next few weeks. We have a Bioeconomy Matters podcast, which we're supporting. It's run by two let's say students at this stage. They're in their early 20s, Rita and Haley from Malta and Portugal. They're absolutely brilliant the way they interview various people working in the bioeconomy. And I would say, Rein, they might interview you at some stage as well. That would be a good interview for people to listen to. But again, it's trying to make bioeconomy accessible to more people. We've also developed some games. Resource Don't Go is in existence. You can see it on our website as well. We have a new one which we demonstrated last week. It's on sustainable chocolate production. That's called Choco Chase. We've also been to various festivals. We had a BioBeo festival in Brussels last March. We have attended the UCD annual family festival as well here in Dublin. And we might just move on to the next slide then. So on our website, and I'm near the end of this stage, you can look at how you could introduce new content such as bioeconomy. If you go to the tab curriculum change there at the top of the screen, when you go onto our website, biobeo EU, you can see this image at the top. Do you want to bring innovation to schools? So this brings you through step by step how you can introduce new content into schools, and it'll ask you what options, or it'll look at different options what you have. Do you want to make a huge change? Do you want to introduce it into little bits, block by block? Or so anyway, if you click on that, you can see it'll bring you through different questions, and it's aimed at teachers to show how you can introduce new content in the schools. If we move on again, please. So that's just again kind of highlighting the partners we have in different countries there. We're actually with partners in 15 partners in 10 different countries. We have 3 partners in Ireland. We have a couple of partners in Germany, Hohenheim University, TU Berlin. We have a number of non-government organizations as well. Foundation for Environmental Education is probably our most international one. And the scene at the top of the screen there is from our latest comic. It's from a scene at a concert by David Gray. He's a UK singer. He appears in our latest comic because he's actually an ambassador to try and save that bird, the curlew. So I think I'll wrap up at this stage. I think there's one final slide just saying thank you to you for listening, and a final message of hope from our characters there. Birds of a feather flock together. It's in Irish there at the top, Tagum Lat Bio. It means the same thing. So you can find us on social media there on BioBeo EU as well. Thank you.
Super. Thank you, Tom. I have to apologize because I think we are a little Eurocentric. However, I will point out that the BioBeo resources can be used by anyone in any school around the world. And so I'm just gonna tag onto what Tom was sharing about, why does bioeconomy education matter, and who is responsible for it. I think this is an opportunity to point out that it is not limited to the STEM subjects, and it doesn't have to be only in science or biology or math class or anything like that. And in fact, really, you can learn and engage with the bioeconomy through various lenses. You can do it in modern foreign languages. You can look at news articles about different initiatives. You can turn this into a project. Art and design is a great way to look at bio-based materials, and economics and business. I think Rein also touched upon it, that in fact you can have economically sound and strong, innovations and companies based off of bioeconomy. And I think this idea is also something that really echoes in the LEAF program from the perspective of outdoor education, and that it's not limited just to one outdoor biology teacher, let's say, but really that everyone can engage and be part of outdoor education, no matter what subject you teach. That being said, age also does matter. So we saw a range of educators here from early years to secondary. So it's important to adapt the activities. So here we have one example of soap making with natural ingredients. And so with the little 3 to 5 year olds, you can make a simple soap recipe. Teaching them, introducing them to the bioeconomy in a hands-on way. From 11 to 13, you can do a bit more experimentation, looking at the various properties of soap and the different elements involved. And then from 16 to 18, you can go even deeper, researching the environmental and social impacts, traditional methods, industrial production, all of this. So this is just a very small example of how one topic can be looked at through bioeconomy at different ages. So with this, I am going to open up the floor for some questions. I'll stop sharing really quickly. If we have any questions for Rein or Tom, I will look into the chat. We have quite a few. One of the questions we have is, how can bioeconomy education be integrated into the existing environmental education programs to enhance the resilience of communities in climate vulnerable areas? Quite a big question. I don't know if Tom, you might want to take that one.
Yeah, thanks, Risa. Well, I suppose our resources can be implemented in small bite-sized blocks, if you like. They're free to use, by the way. You can use the citation maybe from our website, wherever you use the resources. But I suppose the bigger scale change is it's different in different countries as well. Even within Europe, there are different policies as to how you can implement change. So one of the things that we're trying to do is lobby, I suppose, where there are different opportunities. So every few years, typically in countries, there's a consultation for a curriculum change at different levels, preschool, primary and secondary schools. So we've had opportunities where we've lobbied in various countries to include bioeconomy in the curriculum. So one example is in Ireland, in the senior cycle at the end of secondary school or high school. The 2-year program is called a Leaving Certificate. So now the government has introduced a new a subject called climate action and sustainable development. So when we found out that they were consulting on that, we lobbied, we went to meetings and we said bioeconomy should be part of the curriculum. So now it's part of the curriculum. So again, it depends on the situation in different countries, how you can implement change, but we have to start somewhere, I suppose, and it depends on the opportunities locally and nationally, I think, as well.
Super, thank you. We have another question, Rein, this one is going to be for you. How can the bioeconomy create new economic opportunities for youth and young people in schools? And then I think I might add my own question onto that. Since you are someone who is now in the field of bioeconomy, is there anything in your own education that either helped you get to this point, that got you curious in the bioeconomy, or something you wish you had had?
I have to admit, I already forgot the first part of the question, so I just take the second part. What I my education, I'm an agriculture engineer or bioengineer, and it was mostly focused on, let's say, agriculture, actually. And I would have loved it if it would be even much more broader than it was. It was at the time looked at from a quite economical perspective, technical, but also economical perspective, but not that much the wider ecosystems. Whereas I think now the curricula have changed and they see it much more in a broader sense. Like you cannot exploit the soil. You have to take care of biodiversity because it's in our own advantage. It's for humankind and for all other species, but we need all those other species. That is now the main message. Whereas when I was still studying, it was quite focused on production.
Okay, thank you. So the interconnectedness element between all the things is important.
Yeah, and also what I missed, maybe we were, almost always looking at things from an engineer point of view. The angle of the technical, the engineer was the most the predominant way of looking at things, whereas now in earth, plant, and fiber, it's much more diverse, and so there are also designers at the table or storytellers and the forest owners, and it's way more diverse, and it's so much more interesting.
Super, thank you. I think that really speaks to the point of like everyone can be involved in the bioeconomy. You don't have to be an engineer. I'm mindful of time, and I have a few more things that I'd like to get from you, the audience, the participants here. So just a last Mentimeter, 2 questions. As I mentioned, this is only the first part of a 2-part webinar series. So it was meant to be an introduction to bioeconomy and bioeconomy education. We hope to get deeper into that in the next webinar. So from this last hour sitting together, listening to this, from your perspective as an educator, what might be the advantages of bringing bioeconomy education into your teaching practice and into your classroom? I'll give you just 30 seconds, 1 minute to answer this. Thank you for the first response. A really great way to make big concepts and actions required for climate change tangible for younger people, hands-on projects. Okay, we have a scout leader and some scouts represented here. That's great. Also a nice way to engage. More innovation and freedom. That's nice. Promote green startups. More aware of the impact they have on daily life. Yeah. Youth engagement. Yeah. One of the questions was actually how to bring bioeconomy into the classroom and connect that with, you know, careers and youth and young people. Any others? Diversity. I think this means a lot. A holistic view of the environment. Great. All right. And then a last question. What do you think are some of the barriers and challenges to bioeconomy education? This was already a question that I saw in the chat. I intentionally did not answer it, but I think from our perspective for the next webinar, we would like to ideally address some of these barriers and challenges that you might feel are stopping you from teaching about bioeconomy or talking about the bioeconomy in your classes. So we already have 2 responses. We have funding support and content knowledge. Yeah. Lack of general knowledge of what it is, absolutely. Time to fill the projects, our minds. That's very philosophical. Environmental friendly technology, old habits and misunderstandings. Support, implication, and resources. All right. Teachers' capacity, not resourceful. Okay. Curriculum is closed, yeah. Better understanding of the concept, teacher's knowledge, hard to communicate a science concept to a wider audience. Teachers interested in this field, way to educate the people and for sure how to apply it, underrated. That's an interesting one. All right, I'm getting the feeling that there is a bit of a lack of knowledge or a feeling that you might lack some knowledge of bioeconomy, even though you might already be engaging with bioeconomy without knowing it. Information policies, environmental paradigms, finding local resources, perception may appear as some form of greenwashing. Okay, super. Feel free to keep adding there. Since we are wrapping up, I'm just gonna kind of go through some next steps for you. As Tom already mentioned, the BioBeo project has many resources, everything from little comics to get people, you know, thinking about bioeconomy. There are videos for students. There's lesson plans for educators. There's all kinds of tools that have been produced by all the partners. And you can find that at biobeo EU under the education program and the project outcomes. And we've also highlighted a few of these on our LEAF website under bioeconomy with BioBeo. And there you will also find a lot of outdoor education lesson plans organized by different themes, produced by our international network. So if you're curious and you're afraid you don't have the resources, and this is what's stopping you, I would start here. if you want to just get a bit of a taste for what bioeconomy education can actually look like, then I would encourage you to join our Global Action Days, which is an annual campaign that the Foundation for Environmental Education runs around the world. And this year there's 5 activities all around ecosystem restoration. And activity 3 is actually learning about bioeconomy and ecosystem restoration together. So this is a chance to actually do bioeconomy education. So you can register with that QR code, or there might be a link in the chat. For Global Action Days, it's free, it's fun, it's happening in April. We encourage everyone to join. And then lastly, we are planning to keep the conversation going in the next workshop. I'm going to use the answers that you shared with us today about the challenges, and we're going to work on addressing those in the next workshop on the 27th of March. That's a month from now. So you can register for that if you haven't already. And with that, I think just a big thank you for your attention. And I will stop sharing. And it is just 1 minute before the end. And with that, I think I will close this. Thank you all so much for joining. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Rein. It was great to have both perspectives, I think, here today. And hopefully to all the audience, we see you in a month at the next workshop. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.